I can still feel the weight of that plastic ring in my palm. It was supposed to be funny, just another inside joke between best friends. But when her eyes met mine, something shifted in the universe. "I thought you'd never ask me," she whispered, and suddenly I wasn't breathing anymore. That's when I realized some jokes can change your life forever. If you've ever wondered if your best friend could be your soulmate, stick around for this incredible journey. And if this story touches your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life stories that remind us how love often hides in plain sight. My name is Daniel, and for 10 years, Olivia had been my best friend, the person who knew every embarrassing story, every dream, and every fear I'd ever had. We met in high school when we were partnered for a chemistry project. The irony wasn't lost on either of us later, chemistry indeed. Olivia was everything I wasn't: organized, punctual, and incredibly focused. I was the class clown, always ready with a joke, often to mask my insecurities. Somehow, our differences created a perfect balance. She kept me grounded, I helped her live a little. We were inseparable through high school, and when college came around, we both chose the same university, though different majors. She pursued architecture, I went for literature. We had movie nights every Friday without fail. We had inside jokes that no one else understood. We had rituals and traditions, like our annual friendiversary celebrations where we'd recreate our first meeting with increasingly elaborate and ridiculous chemistry experiments. We were each other's emergency contacts, each other's plus ones at weddings, each other's shoulders to cry on. There was never anything romantic between us, or so I thought. We'd both dated other people throughout the years. I'd listen to her stories about terrible dates and offer advice. She'd help me understand where I went wrong with relationships that fizzled out. We were just friends. Best friends. Nothing more. Or that's what I kept telling myself, ignoring the way my heart would sometimes race when she'd fall asleep on my shoulder during movie marathons, or how I'd find myself staring a beat too long when she laughed. These feelings were inconvenient, unwelcome even. I buried them deep, convinced that risking our friendship for something more would be the biggest mistake of my life. By our late 20s, we were firmly entrenched in our careers but still made time for each other. Olivia had become a rising star at her architecture firm, while I was teaching literature at the local community college and working on my novel in the evenings. We lived in the same apartment building, a coincidence, we told everyone, though we'd both separately made sure the other was applying before signing our leases. It was during one of our friendiversary celebrations that everything changed. 10 years of friendship, a decade of inside jokes, shared grief, celebrated victories, and middle-of-the-night phone calls. We decided to make it special with a weekend trip to the beach where we'd rented a small cottage. The evening had been perfect. We'd cooked dinner together, opened a bottle of wine, and reminisced about all our adventures. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, and we were sitting on the beach watching the waves. 10 years, Olivia said, her dark hair blowing in the gentle breeze. Can you believe it? Sometimes it feels like we just met, I replied. Other times, I can't remember what life was like before you were in it. She smiled, drawing patterns in the sand with her finger. Remember when you accidentally set your textbook on fire during our first chemistry project? I laughed. How could I forget? Mr. Peterson banned me from using the Bunsen burner for the rest of the semester. And I had to be your hands, she added. We got an A anyway. We always made a good team. The conversation lulled into a comfortable silence as we watched the sun disappear behind the horizon. That's when the ridiculous idea popped into my head. In my pocket was a plastic ring, one of those cheesy, colorful things you get from a vending machine. I'd bought it earlier that day when we stopped for gas, thinking it might be funny to include in her friendiversary gift bag. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the sunset. Maybe it was 10 years of suppressed feelings finally bubbling to the surface. Whatever it was, I found myself pulling out that plastic ring. Hey, Liv, I said, getting on one knee dramatically in the sand before her. We've been together for 10 years now. You've seen me at my worst and somehow still stuck around. So. I held out the ridiculous plastic ring with its oversized fake gem. Will you marry me? I added a wink to make sure she knew I was joking. I expected her to laugh, to shove me playfully, to make some quip about how she could do better. What I didn't expect was the way her smile faltered or how her eyes suddenly glistened with unshed tears. I thought you'd never ask me, she said softly, her voice barely audible over the sound of the waves. Time stopped. The world around us ceased to exist. There was just Olivia, her words hanging in the air between us, and the ridiculous plastic ring in my suddenly trembling hand. What? I managed to say, still on one knee but no longer playing a role. Olivia looked away, her cheeks flushed. Nothing. I know you're joking. Very funny, Dan. She tried to laugh, but it sounded hollow. Liv, I said, reaching for her hand. Did you mean that? She pulled her hand away and stood up, brushing sand from her clothes. Let's head back. It's getting cold. But I couldn't let it go. Not after what she'd said. Not after the look in her eyes. I stood and caught her wrist gently before she could walk away. Olivia, please. Talk to me. She took a deep breath, her back still to me. It was nothing. Just playing along with your joke. It didn't sound like nothing, I insisted. It sounded like. Like what? She turned to face me, challenge in her eyes now. Like I've been in love with my best friend for years but was too scared to ruin what we had? Like I've watched you date other women while pretending it didn't break my heart? Like that? Her words hit me like a physical blow. I dropped her wrist, stunned. How long? I whispered. Does it matter? It matters to me. She sighed, looking out at the darkening ocean. I don't know exactly. It wasn't a lightning strike moment. It was gradual, like erosion. One day I just realized that what I felt for you wasn't just friendship anymore. Why didn't you ever say anything? For the same reason you made that proposal a joke just now, she replied. Fear. I couldn't bear the thought of losing you, of making things weird between us. Your friendship means, everything to me. I wasn't willing to risk it. I stood there, processing her words, feeling like my entire worldview was shifting. All those moments, all those years, had I been blind? Or had I been hiding from the truth as well? Liv, She held up a hand, stopping me. Please don't say anything you don't mean. I've spent years building walls to protect myself from this very conversation. If you're about to let me down gently, just, don't. I'd rather we pretend this never happened. But that wasn't what I wanted to say at all. The realization hit me with startling clarity, I had been hiding from my feelings too. All those relationships that never quite worked out, all those times I'd feel inexplicably jealous when she mentioned a date, all those moments my heart would skip when she smiled, it hadn't been just friendship for me either. Instead of speaking, I reached for her hand again and pressed the plastic ring into her palm. Ask me, I said quietly. What? Confusion clouded her features. Ask me if I meant it. If part of me has always meant it. Her eyes widened. Dan. Please, Liv. She swallowed hard. Did you mean it? Is there any part of you that wasn't joking? I took her face in my hands, finally allowing myself to look at her the way I'd always wanted to. Every part of me, I whispered. I've been hiding from it, running from it, telling myself it was just because we were close. But it's always been you, Liv. I was just too scared to admit it, even to myself. The tears she'd been holding back finally spilled over. If you're messing with me right now, I swear I will push you into the ocean. I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in years. I'd deserve it. But I'm not messing with you. I'm terrified, but I'm not joking. I took the ring from her palm and held it up. This is ridiculous and not at all what you deserve, but, will you marry me, Olivia? Not today, not tomorrow, but someday? When we're ready? She looked at the plastic ring, then back at me, a slow smile spreading across her face. Only if you promise to buy me a real one eventually. Deal, I said, sliding the plastic ring onto her finger. It was too big and utterly absurd, but in that moment, it was perfect. She looked at it, laughing through her tears. We're insane, you know that? This is insane. Maybe. But it also feels right, doesn't it? She nodded, then leaned forward and kissed me. It wasn't our first kiss, we'd had a drunken, awkward one in college during a party game that we'd promptly agreed to never speak of again, but it was our first real one. And it felt like coming home. That night should have been the happy ending to our story. But real life isn't a fairy tale, and 10 years of friendship doesn't transform into a perfect relationship overnight. The drive back to the city the next day was filled with awkward silences and overthinking. The easy camaraderie that had defined our friendship for a decade was suddenly tense with new expectations and fears. What if we'd made a mistake? What if we ruined everything we had? Maybe we should take a step back, Olivia suggested as we unpacked the car outside our apartment building. Think about what this means. A cold fear gripped me. Are you having regrets already? No, she said quickly. But this is a big change, Dan. I don't want us to rush into something and mess it up because we didn't think it through. She was right, of course. Olivia was always the practical one. So what do? We date, she said simply. Like normal people. We get to know each other in this new context. I couldn't help but laugh. Liv, I know what brand of toothpaste you use, how you take your coffee, and that you still sleep with the stuffed turtle your grandmother gave you when you were 8. She blushed. That's different. You know me as a friend. Dating is different. Is it? I challenged. The way I see it, we've been dating for 10 years without the physical benefits. That's exactly the kind of thinking that could mess this up, she insisted. We need to make sure we're compatible romantically, not just as friends. I wanted to argue but held back. Fine. We'll date. But I'm telling you now, I already know I want more than that. Her expression softened. So do I. That's why we need to do this right. And so began the strangest dating period of my life. We went on official dates, where we'd dress up and go to restaurants we'd been to dozens of times before, suddenly hyper-aware of table manners and conversational topics. We'd end the evening with awkward goodbyes at her apartment door, as if we hadn't spent countless nights crashing on each other's couches. Our friends thought we were ridiculous. You two have been practically married for years, my roommate from college, Matt, pointed out when we told him. What exactly are you waiting for? Olivia's best girlfriend, Rachel, was equally bewildered. So let me get this straight. You confessed your feelings, decided you want to be together, but now you're pretending you just met? When she put it that way, it did sound absurd. But there was something valuable in the process. We were learning to see each other through new eyes, appreciating aspects of each other we'd taken for granted. The bigger challenge, however, came from our families. Both sets of parents were shocked, not that we were dating, but that it had taken us so long to figure it out. Honey, we've had a betting pool going since your sophomore year of college, my mother informed me during Sunday dinner, causing me to choke on my drink. Mom. What? The only surprise is that it took you this long. Your father owes me $50. Olivia's parents were equally unsurprised but more concerned about the potential fallout. If this doesn't work out, her father warned during an uncomfortable conversation in their living room, you lose your best friend too. Are you prepared for that? We weren't, of course. Nobody could be. But we were determined to try anyway. 3 months into our dating phase, we hit our first major obstacle. Olivia was offered a prestigious 6-month position at an architectural firm in Chicago, an opportunity too good to pass up. In our friendship, we would have celebrated unequivocally. In this new relationship, it created our first real conflict. "So what are you saying?" she demanded, standing in my living room after telling me about the offer. "That I shouldn't take it?" "I'm not saying that," I insisted, though part of me wanted to. "I'm just saying we need to talk about what it means for us. What it means is that I'll be in Chicago for 6 months, and then I'll come back. People do long distance all the time. As friends, we've never been apart for more than 2 weeks," I pointed out. "And now we're not just friends, so we need to learn how to handle these situations differently," she countered. "This is exactly why I wanted to take things slow. We need to figure out if we can survive real-life challenges." She was right again, but it didn't make the prospect of 6 months apart any easier. "I'm afraid," I admitted, finally voicing the fear that had been haunting me since that night on the beach. "I'm afraid that once we're apart, you'll realize you were better off when we were just friends." Her expression softened. "Dan." She crossed the room and took my hands. "I've been in love with you for years. 6 months in Chicago isn't going to change that. Promise?" "I promise. And you need to promise me something too. Anything. Promise me you won't put your life on hold while I'm gone. Keep writing your novel. Go out with friends. Live your life." "I promise," I said, though the thought of my life without her in it, even temporarily, felt hollow. The next 6 months were harder than either of us anticipated. Video calls weren't the same as movie nights on the couch. Text messages couldn't replace the comfort of her presence. The distance strained our new relationship in ways our friendship had never been tested. 3 months in, we had our first serious fight. I had been buried in my novel, missing several of our scheduled calls. Olivia, dealing with the stress of her new position and feeling isolated in a city where she knew no one, was hurt by what she perceived as neglect. "If this is too much for you, just say so," she snapped during a tense video call. "That's not fair," I retorted. "You're the one who insisted I not put my life on hold, remember? There's a difference between living your life and forgetting I exist." "I haven't forgotten you exist. I've just been focused on finishing my manuscript." "More focused on that than on us, clearly." The argument escalated until we both said things we regretted. We ended the call angry and hurt, and for 3 days, we didn't speak at all, the longest we'd gone without communication in 10 years. Those 3 days were agony. I couldn't sleep, couldn't write, couldn't focus on anything. By the 3rd night, I knew I had to fix things. I called her, not caring that it was nearly midnight in Chicago. She answered on the first ring. "I was just about to call you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm sorry," we both said simultaneously, then laughed, breaking the tension. "I miss you," I admitted. "More than I thought possible." "I miss you too," she replied. "And I'm sorry for what I said. I know you're not neglecting us. I'm just struggling here more than I expected. Want to tell me about it?" She did, and for the next 2 hours, we talked, really talked, about our fears, insecurities, and expectations. It wasn't an easy conversation, but it was necessary. By the end, we felt closer despite the physical distance between us. "You know what I realized during these past few days?" Olivia said softly. "What's that?" "That even when I'm mad at you, you're still the person I want to talk to most in the world. That has to mean something, right?" It meant everything. The remaining months were still challenging, but we were better at communicating, more understanding of each other's needs. We established better routines, sent care packages, and even managed a weekend visit when I flew to Chicago to surprise her. When she finally returned home, we'd been officially dating for 9 months.